Word in Your Attic, a Zoom with a View.
So we're joined for another Word in Your Attic by Martin Kelner and his daughter Ruth. And where is your attic? It's not an attic. That's far nicer than an attic.
No, we're in our lounge. I think we call it a lounge, front room, our salon.
Right. And where are you?
We're in Wakefield, just up the road from your old school.
But, you keep a check on my old school for me. I occasionally have to. Yeah. Are they? They're probably not there at the moment. I would imagine they're not there at the moment.
No, they are. Well, not all of them, but there's been several.
Some years, right?
Well, yeah, there've been some people there.
Right. So, Ruth, what stage are you at with your education?
I'm in my first year of uni, but
oh right, okay. But you're not in your first. Oh right. So where are you? Where should you be?
I should be in York.
Right.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I'm back home.
Oh, right. So you've had the strange experience of kind of going away, and then suddenly getting hooked back.
Yeah, exactly.
Not good.
Your recent podcasts have been about the fabulous excitement of being locked down with your parents, haven't they, the last 3 or 4 months?
Yeah, feels like longer.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. I feel so sorry for her because, having, as you said, David, having got into a university, gone through all that, made a circle of friends that she really liked, getting to go out to clubs, drinking too much, all that stuff.
Right.
And suddenly she's back here with myself and my wife, and it's not good, And then, of course, every time you switch on the TV, you hear how tough it's going to be, and et cetera, for young people. So, yeah, shocking. I have a lot of sympathy, and I'd like to make her life better for her, but there's nothing much we can do,
No, sure. So, how are you passing your time, both of you?
Well, I'm still on the radio because I'm doing TalkRadio overnights. 1 till, I know this sounds terrible, DJ plug, but 1 till 5 a.m. No, if you've got anybody listening in Kuala Lumpur or Ho Chi Minh City, we're prime time there. Mid-morning Ho Chi Minh City. It's what I like to call the was slot. So I'm still doing that. So, I'm fortunate in that I've, still got my job.
Right, of course. So you can do that from home.
Yeah, I do that from home.
Right.
Technology, and that's fine. I sort of plug myself in at 1 o'clock in the morning every Friday night and Saturday night, and carry on as normal, reasonably as normal. I mean, it's not easy doing things remotely because there's always a delay and you can't see the people. But yeah, I mean, at least I've got a job.
Right. So, Ruth, you're presumably taking advantage of this extra time at home to do all that reading that you found difficult to keep up with at university.
All the time, yeah.
No, you're not, are you?
No, not all.
Right.
I've been doing a lot of watching TV.
She watches comfort TV. She went right through Gilmore Girls. Then it was Grey's Anatomy.
No, I've not watched.
All right, West Wing,
yeah.
And now she's started Game of Thrones from the start.
Oh, really? That's a lot to go through.
It's a lifetime's occupation ahead of you again, isn't it?
All of everything. That makes it sound worse than it is.
She watched a lot right from the start.
Right.
But yeah.
So have you been doing? With the thing we've been asking lots of people on these Word in Your Attics is everybody's sitting at home surrounded by their rubbish and leafing through their souvenirs and thinking, why have I got this? How did I end up with this? Have you done any of that, Martin?
Yes. In fact, I threw out a whole lot of football programs, ones that were, just complete matches that I went to in 1978 and stuff like that I thought were just ordinary league matches. I couldn't remember the score. I couldn't remember who scored, or anything. So I threw out a load of those and just kept the really important ones, the European Cup Winners' Cup final, those sort of programs. So I threw out a load of those programs. I've been going through albums because I have a huge collection of comedy albums.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, I watched that Sky documentary about National Lampoon. I don't know whether you saw it.
No, I don't know.
Oh, it's well worth watching. With Tony Hendra, of course, who was Ian Faith in Spinal
Tap.
His Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
So I thought,
We're not less popular. It's just our appeal is getting more selective.
correct.
Just going out and getting the ukulele strings at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's right.
Yeah. So so I went through the albums and some of the people that albums that I bought years ago, but not just by National Lampoon, and have all their stuff, but also somebody called The Credibility Gap, which had Michael McKean in it, of course.
Spinal Tap and so forth. Yeah.
Harry Shearer was in quite a few of these. Obviously, he was in Spinal Tap, but he was also in a few of these other people. So I went through all my albums. I brought some of them down.
Oh, go on, show us them.
This is National Lampoon.
Oh, I've got that.
You'll have that. Radio Dinner. Some of the others. This is Gold Turkey, another National Lampoon.
Right. Yeah.
That's another National Lampoon, and another one. That's very good. That's not funny. That's good. This is The Credibility Gap, which had, I think, Harry Shearer.
Right. Oh, wow. Right way up.
She knows how to.
Yeah.
To do stuff. Then I have a load of George Carlin albums.
Now, I know nothing about George Carlin at all. He's one of those people, of course, in those days, American comics didn't cross over very often, didn't they?
No, although interestingly, there's a clip on YouTube of Jerry Seinfeld on Des O'Connor. You know Des O'Connor? He was the only guy that used to interview American comedians.
I think I knew this. Go on. Yeah, go on.
But yeah, he did all that. So, but you're right, George Carlin was completely unknown. But I used to buy comedy albums because I collected comedy albums. Obviously, I've got all the British stuff, Monty Python, the Goons, and all that. But I used to buy these albums, and if anything looked funny, I'd buy them. And George Carlin,
it looked funny.
Yes, it looked funny. I mean, I've bought all sorts of weird stuff over the years that looked funny. He was the weather. Ted Knight. He was the weatherman in the Mary Tyler Moore Show. I mean, it's not a great album, but I bought that. Obviously, I've got all the British stuff, you'll know.
Oh, no, hold that up. Hold that up again. I want to say, oh, wow, I haven't seen that for a long time. Yeah, what a beautiful thing that is.
Beautiful.
But you can't get that anymore.
No, you probably can't. Although, of course, you can get all the stuff is on YouTube.
Yeah.
But the album, no, you can't. But so I got, if anything looks mildly amusing, I'd buy it. I've got a bizarre collection of Nixon albums, because obviously when all that, this is all just proving how blinking old I am, but when all the Watergate stuff was going on, every sort of leftish liberal comedian in America was making Nixon albums. So I've got, most of them mean nothing now, for all the names and everything.
Do you ever go back and listen to them again? Do you ever go back and hear them?
Occasionally. But do you know what? I find, because sometimes I play, something crops up in the news and I think, oh, there's a bit in one of those old Lampoon albums that's quite, especially when people are dying and things, and you think, oh, well, National Lampoon did a thing about that, or Credibility Gap, or one of those people. So I hunt it out. But I find it's easier to probably look for the clip somewhere on
YouTube. Yeah.
Rather than actually play the album, download the clip, use all that. So
I think it's so interesting to see that stuff, because I think people forget, well, presumably people like Ruth never knew this, that the comedy album used to be an absolutely huge thing, didn't it? That it was what the LP was for, wasn't it, in many ways?
Yeah, totally.
Lots of people had more comedy records than they had musical records, didn't they?
I might be one of them, actually.
I think you probably are.
And the other key thing about the comedy record is it had to be listened to with other people, wasn't it? It was not a solo experience. You had to get a whole load of people around and open a keg of beer.
You could do that, open a keg of beer or whatever else. But yeah, but I used to listen to them on my own as well, and I would dub, if I had a long car journey, if I was going down like a couple of 100 miles, I would dub one onto cassette and put the cassette in the car and listen to it.
Right.
The cassette, yeah. Explain to the cassette.
Long-suffering look.
So Ruth, what have you got? You haven't got any old souvenirs?
No, no, I've got nothing. Although we did look through the all of my old school books. I had loads and loads that I'd kept from when I was like in primary school, and I found this was the only thing I must have been into music-wise was Girls Aloud, which now is like a crime probably. But I had an interview that I'd written with Kimberly Walsh from Girls Aloud. She's my favourite member, and I'd written both sides of the interview. So I'd been like, Kimberly, how are you? And then
So you invented this thing.
Yeah, I invented
it was kind of creative writing, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you got it there?
Interesting questions were you asking? Can you remember any of your questions?
I think that got taken in the cold. I'd asked her about her relationship with Ashton Kutcher, because that was the rumour at the time, I think, when I was like 11 or 12. The rumour was that she was going out with Ashton Kutcher from That 70s Show. And so I'd asked her about that, and then I'd written in her replies, I don't really want to talk about that, thank you.
So, do you ever regret the fact that compared to your father's generation, you probably won't have the same kind of souvenirs kicking around when you're in your 50s or whatever, that so much of your experience is obviously digital, it's kind of goes down the phone line or whatever. Do you ever think you miss that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think it would be nice. Like the idea of having a record collection is like really lovely.
You've got a few records. You've got
I've got like a
Biffy Clyro.
I've got a Biffy Clyro. I've got a Let's See Grandma album, but I would never go to listen to them. Like I know I have quite a few friends who are really into records and they will play those a lot. But I'm very on the
Spotify.
Yeah, I'm very
right.
digital.
So when you turned up at York University last year, or whenever it was, you didn't notice, people walking around campus with albums under their arm, trying to get noticed, desperate cry for help or anything like that, no?
I think there's now, it was very like trendy to have albums, and now it's kind of gone the other way.
Oh, it's passé again, is it? Oh, that's fantastic news. I didn't know this at all. The vinyl revival has gone away.
It's already over.
I'm kind of relieved.
You just knew it had started. Exactly.
I was getting really irritated by it in the first place. It's gone away.
I think actual old vinyls are still in. So like vinyls from the era. But I think that like modern music being put on vinyl, I think I think that's not cool anymore.
So listen, one of the reasons we wanted you both on here is you do a podcast together, don't you? Tell us about that.
We've not been doing it for the last couple of weeks, but we are going to do it again, aren't we?
Yeah.
We've not been doing it for the last couple of weeks because really there was nothing happening. Do you know what I mean? It was always interesting when Ruth was telling me what was going on. Same as you, David, and you, Mark. We want to know what students are doing these days and what it's like to be at university in 2020. So, instead of 1937. So so it was quite interesting. She would, tell me what was going on these days. But we might do because hopefully she's going to explain to me what TikTok is.
Oh, that's what we want.
Yeah.
I will tune in when you explain that because I don't know. I want somebody to put that. Can you explain to me now, Ruth, what it is? What TikTok is?
The TikTok, it's actually really difficult to explain. It's an app where people make short videos. I think they're maximum like 60 seconds long. And often they're like dances to music that get really viral and stuff, or they're other like jokes. But the thing that's different, I think, about than other apps is that you don't really follow people that much. I think you do a bit if you're like really into it, but when you first click on it, it comes up as a page that then just starts all the videos. So you don't search for anything. It's all like
it's all just there. It's just there. So what have you found?
I have to say, there's such a lovely, fondly mocking tone to your podcast. The way you softly lampoon each other. It's very, very affecting. It's like a kind of dinner conversation record. And I love the way also that you, unlike most families, you agree to disagree and have that brilliant bit where you both play each other music. I think you, Ruth, played something like Do Re Mi by Black Bear. And you were playing, Martin, I think it was Stephen Bishop from Tootsie or something, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And I love the way that you send each other up for your absurd choices, you know. It works brilliantly. Yeah. And also the way you agree on certain people. You know, you both love Richard Osman, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, oh, yeah, I love Richard Osman, such a nice guy. And so positive on Twitter. It's very, very difficult. I mean, especially at the moment things are irritating. It's very difficult to be 100% positive on Twitter. But Richard Osman says everything's great. And you're sort of quite warm to people like that.
Yeah.
Even though you'd never do it yourself.
I was just going to ask what the big debate, you have these lovely debates like, do girls watch Star Wars, you know? What are the, can you think of debates that had the biggest reaction from all your enormous number of listeners?
Probably ones about like colonialism.
Yeah, that's true.
That gets
it's quite topic. I mean, I'm sort of more relaxed about, you know, the Colston Hall in Bristol and the fact that
I see. Okay.
Yeah,
we had a debate about Churchill, I think.
Yeah, about Churchill, who, you know, to me, obviously brought up in that post-war generation, is a hero against whom I'll hear nothing, but you know, clearly Ruth's generation have a slightly more nuanced view.
Right.
And we do
Can I just make one piece of advice, and not podcasting point of view, but just a father-daughter issue.
Oh, yeah.
Just based on my massive experience, because I'm ancient now and I've got grandchildren and so forth. And Mark, I'm sure, would agree. The thing about dealing with parents is a tiny bit of information goes a long, long way. So when you come back from university and your mum and dad say, how are your friends? Or, you know, where did you go on Tuesday? Tell them something. It doesn't have to be important. You know what I mean? There's the tiniest bit of thing. They then go off and talk about it quite happily. Am I right, Martin? For weeks.
Spot on.
And, go on.
It is pretty impressive. I've got friends I've had since I was like 4 years old who have come round to the house millions of times, had sleepovers and stuff. Then they'll leave, and my dad will go, "Oh, and who was that?" And I'll be like, "Dad, you've met them about 100 times, not remember anyone's name."
Yeah.
No, but you need it even more when your children go out into the world, you know, university or work or whatever, because you cling on to the tiny little fragments that they tell you when they come back, don't you? And you build a picture from just those tiny bits. So all I'm saying is tell them tiny, harmless things. It won't do any harm. They won't ring you up and bother you about it at all. Whereas so much of the time I've found with my kids, how's everything? Oh, fine. And you think, oh, give me something to work with, you know. That's the name of the game, isn't it? Really. So you're going to start doing your podcasts again.
Yes, we are. I'm very confident about that. But I mean, to be honest, Ruth, you just got a bit fed up by and large with everything. And
only because I think we did like 3 or 4 while we were just in this lockdown, and it was kind of like you'd sit down and you think, oh my gosh, I've got nothing. Like I've not done anything.
Yeah.
I have nothing. That's the secret of broadcasting, isn't it, Martin?
Absolutely.
I have nothing, but you keep going.
Keep going, yeah. And I always had stuff, you know, because obviously we're doing the radio show. I had stuff. I think Ruth also got a bit, because I do the radio show as well, and most of the people, certainly the people listening at 3 o'clock in the morning in the UK, are probably sort of elderly gentlemen with prostate issues who are obviously, you know, have to get up and they may switch the radio on and have a listen or whatever. So a lot of those people used to get in touch. So with the podcast, because they went into that as well. And Ruth, you were thinking it was a sort of demographic you weren't that bothered about reaching.
There's no future in it, is there at all? Are you finding broadcasting in the middle of the night that you're broadcasting to a different audience given the current situation? I mean, a lot of people, I haven't had any trouble sleeping, but a lot of people have, haven't they? Is that right? Have you found
that's absolutely right. And I think we've sort of got brownie points for keeping on going in the middle of the night, you know. So I've noticed a bit of a
like
slight.
the band on the Titanic.
Yeah, very much like the band on the Titanic.
Gloomy image. Didn't happen that.
Do you ever find yourself? You must, when you're doing those kind of broadcasts in the middle of the night. You must presumably entertain the idea occasionally nobody's listening. Although I know somebody will be listening, but.
No, you're right. I do.
Do you ever slip into that reverie of thinking, I'm going to go into Tony Hancock's The Radio Ham and nobody's going to know the difference?
Yeah, you know Tony Hancock now, don't you? Because we did. So I introduced, when I said friends all over the world.
None in this country.
None in this country. It sort of went a bit overhead. But yeah, no, I do. I remember once when I was on local radio in Leeds, and I was doing the breakfast show on Christmas morning.
An enviable slot.
Yeah, I did say, I used to love doing that actually. I was doing the breakfast show on a Christmas morning, and I say our competition this morning is, are you listening? Send us a text if you're listening. I mean, there were people listening as it so happened, but that was it. Just, are you listening? I've done that on TalkRadio as well.
And then there's a terrible long wait before anything arrives. It's right, yeah. Unnerving.
There is, yeah. And then you think, is it the technology that's not working, nobody getting touch, or is there actually nobody listening? Which is an interesting moment.
No, the Radio Ham, I can never quite suppress the idea of the Radio Ham whenever I'm in the radio studio of any kind. And the classic case of this, Mark and I often talk about when we did Live Aid all those millions of years ago. You may remember that Steve Blacknell was sent to go with Phil Collins on Concorde.
Yeah.
You know, the idea was going to play at both ends. And so Steve Blacknell was on the flight deck with the pilot, making radio contact with me back in the UK. And Steve and I were both Hancock fans. And so the first word spoken via this miraculous link was, "It is not raining in Tokyo," which is a joke that meant nothing at all apart from me and Steve Blacknell, you know, united.
Baffling the entire world
by a
audience.
love of Hancock. So what's happening in Wakefield? Do you go out? Do you go out for walks? You're in the nice bit, aren't you?
Yeah, it's nice here. I was about to say stone me, which is about the only reaction to it, so I'm not ready to tell you. But yeah, we go out for walks, usually separately. Ruth goes over there. There's a big golf course. In fact, you were disappointed when they started playing golf again.
I was upset.
Oh, you'd had it to yourself, had you?
Yeah, because I run through the golf course.
Oh, right. Okay.
And they all came back to golf, and so now I've got to avoid the
tin hat.
Quite nervous,
Yeah. You got to have a tin hat.
I've been walking around various areas of Wakefield that I'd never seen before. So they're all called things like Flanshaw and Renthal.
Yes.
And that. And I always think they sound like the second row of Hull Kingston Rovers.
Flanshaw is classic. It's so funny. I was just talking to somebody in Yorkshire before we started this, who whispered the word livertage to me, and I hadn't heard that in a long, long time.
Oh.
My goodness, that also sounds like a member of the second row at Hull KR.
Yes, or something you would spread on toast.
You wander around, you get exercise, you get out there.
Yeah, a little bit. I wander around, and I'm still working, and I'm doing a couple of podcasts and things. So sort of keeping busy. As I said, it's Ruth that I feel sorry for, because Game of Thrones only takes you so far, doesn't it?
But then you can get on with all that reading that you've got to do. So what are you studying at York?
French and Spanish.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so I don't really have that much reading. I do quite a lot of practice.
Right.
Translating, doing sentences.
And you're learning Arabic a little bit.
Oh yeah, I started learning Arabic.
Oh, that's good.
Which is slow and boring a bit, but it's all right. Yeah.
Okay.
I've started a lot of stuff. I don't know how many things I've finished. But.
All right.
You're presumably, I mean, you're so prolific. Well, both of you are so prolific, but you're probably both working on books, I would have thought.
Well, no, I kind of finished one. And I'm now thinking about the It's supposed to be coming out in September. And I'm trying to decide whether that's a good idea to have a book coming out in September or not, because everything is currently being funneled towards September. Anything anybody can't think about before is, oh, that'll come back in September. You know, I don't think people realise how soon, how close it is. So,
I'd love to interview you on
people's reading habits been ramped up.
For the people in Ho Chi Minh City, because you're I mean, well, both of you to an extent, you're a brand, really. I mean, I know well, your books all have the same sort of
livery.
Sorry,
livery. I think is the word.
That's the word, livery. The same livery. So you're a bit like Harry Potter, or I'm trying to think of there's David Balducci and all those people.
Absolutely, they're my royalty statements come off the computer just alongside J.K. Rowling.
They always put Dave in the same bracket as J.K. Rowling.
Absolutely, like a tiny version of the same thing. Yeah.
Are you doing a book as well at the moment, Mark?
Yeah, I'm not doing another book actually, no, but doing various odds and ends, but I did have one out about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But I'm very impressed with Dave's phenomenal work rate. He's put out one a year. I mean, Dave, over one a year practically for about 4 or 5 years.
It's very difficult for somebody to say that without it making it seem like, what a hack.
No, it does sound like hackery. I don't mean that at all. It's just absolutely, they're incredibly good books produced at a rapid rate.
It's very kind.
David Mitchell, not the comedian, but the guy who wrote Cloud Atlas, he's doing a fictionalized thing. I was reading this, of a rock band in the 70s.
We were talking about it. Yeah, he's based on Syd Barrett and various other David Bowie, I think, isn't he? Yeah. And I remember, and Ozzy Osbourne. It's just a kind of collision of all those characters. I'm dying to read it. Fantastic.
No, we were talking to Dylan Jones about it only yesterday. He'd already read it. I haven't read it. But no doubt we will do, during this situation. Well, lovely to talk to you both.
And you.
Go out and get your exercise, and then get together and put together your thoughts into your next podcast.
We will, definitely.
Brilliant.
And we'll catch up with you along with the residents of Ho Chi Minh City on Talk Radio in the middle of the night.
Oh, that'd be brilliant. That'd really be brilliant. Are you ever awake at that time?
I tell you, I was away the other week. I did an interview with somebody said, "Would you do an interview with Paul Ross?"
Oh yeah, Paul. He's great.
And Paul's terrific. And they said, well, you can record it. I said, no, I'll do it live.
Wow.
And because I like Paul, and so I ended up getting up. And of course, it was supposed to be at 3 o'clock in the morning, so I had to get up about an hour beforehand.
Wow.
And then once you've done it, bizarrely enough, you can't go back to sleep.
No, of course not.
You're too excited. Even if all you've done is talk to somebody, for 10 minutes, it just builds you up, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing you must keep doing in your podcasts is occasionally, Martin, you say, "Do you want to know an interesting fact?" And there's either a deep sigh or a kind of deafening silence from Ruthie's microphone. So true to life. We've all been there.
Yeah, Ruth, let me tell you, in 30 years' time or something like that, you'll be doing the same thing with your offspring. So there you go. They'll get their revenge. Okay. Very nice to see you. All the very best. We'll see you on the other side. Cheers.